The notification lit up Mira's phone at exactly 6:43 p.m. while she stood at the kitchen counter, pretending to read a real estate magazine. I was loading the dishwasher, playing the dutiful husband role I'd perfected over 8 years of marriage. The phone buzzed against the granite surface like an angry wasp. Damon Harlow, the screen announced in bold letters, followed by words that made my hands freeze around a coffee mug. I miss what we had. Mira didn't notice the message immediately. She was too busy explaining why she'd be working late again tomorrow night. Another Thursday evening at the office, she claimed. The third one this month. I watched the screen as 3 dots appeared, indicating she was typing a response somewhere in the digital ether. Then her reply materialized. Me too. 2 words that demolished 8 years of marriage, 3 years of dating, and every stupid anniversary dinner I'd ever planned. 2 words that confirmed what my sister Vera had been telling me for weeks, what the coffee shop sightings had suggested, what those unexplained Thursday absences had practically screamed. I didn't grab the phone. I didn't confront her. I didn't even let my expression change. Instead, I pulled out my own device and took a photograph of her screen. The timestamp read 6:44 p.m. The contact name was crystal clear. Her response was documented in high resolution. "So tomorrow's Thursday meeting is with the Henderson account again?" I asked, my voice steady as concrete. Mira nodded without looking up from her magazine. "Big commission if we close it. You know how important this is for us." "For us." Right. I knew exactly how important Damon Harlow was to her. 4 years they'd dated before I came along. 4 years of what she'd called the most intense relationship of my life before they had their dramatic breakup. She'd told me it ended badly, that they couldn't even be friends afterward. Apparently she'd been lying about that too. The Henderson account was real. I'd checked. Mira did have legitimate Thursday meetings, but her badge logs from the real estate office told a different story. Every Thursday for the past 2 months, she'd left work at 5 o'clock sharp. The meetings she described supposedly ran until 8. That left 3 hours unaccounted for, 3 hours that now made perfect sense. I finished loading the dishwasher while Mira chatted about property values and market trends. Her phone buzzed twice more, but she didn't check it. Smart woman. She'd learned to be careful around me, though apparently not careful enough. "I'm going to shower," she announced, finally heading upstairs. The moment her footsteps faded, I moved to her phone. Still unlocked, still displaying their conversation thread. I scrolled up, my jaw tightening with each exchange. 300 messages over the past month. 300 reasons to feel like an idiot for trusting her. The messages weren't explicitly romantic, but they didn't need to be. The subtext was clear in every thinking of you and wish things were different. Clear in the way they discussed meeting locations and timing. Clear in how they referenced shared memories that had nothing to do with casual friendship. But the most damning evidence sat in my desk drawer upstairs. A thank you card from Nola Harlow, Damon's wife of 6 years. 8 months pregnant with their first child. She'd written in careful cursive to thank Mira for the expensive stroller she'd sent for their baby shower last weekend. I'd found the receipt in Mira's purse. $200 for a gift that seemed excessive for someone she claimed to barely know, but it made perfect sense if she was trying to assuage guilt over sleeping with the woman's husband. Nola's phone number was written on the card in the same careful script. I'd memorized it 3 days ago when I first discovered the receipt. Now I had a use for it. I opened a new message on my phone and attached the screenshot. No commentary needed. No emotional outburst required. Just evidence, clean and undeniable. I typed in Nola's number and hit send at exactly 6:47 p.m. Then I sat back and waited. The shower was still running upstairs when Mira's phone rang at 7:07 p.m. The caller ID showed Nola's name. I didn't answer, obviously. Let it ring through to voicemail. But when it rang again immediately, I knew the message had been received and understood. Mira's voice echoed from the bathroom, calling down the stairs. "Silas, can you grab that? I'm still in the shower." "Sorry, missed it," I called back, watching the phone ring for the 3rd time. She appeared 2 minutes later, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, phone pressed to her ear. I pretended to read a magazine while listening to one side of what was clearly a devastating conversation. "Nola, I can explain. It's not what you think. Please, just listen. I never meant for this to happen." The call lasted 6 minutes. When it ended, Mira stood in our kitchen looking like she'd been struck by lightning. Her face had gone pale, her hands were shaking, and for the first time in months, she looked directly at me with something resembling fear. "We need to talk," she said. I closed my magazine and met her eyes. "Do we?" Someone sent Nola a screenshot of my phone, of a text conversation. "That's unfortunate." She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched understanding dawn in her expression. It was you. The text was from Damon Harlow. You replied, "Me too." I thought his pregnant wife should know what her husband misses. Mira's towel slipped slightly, but she didn't adjust it. She was too focused on the implications of what I'd just admitted. How could you do that? She's 8 months pregnant. How could you send me too to her husband? It wasn't like that. It was just what? Just innocent nostalgia? Just friendly conversation between exes? Just 300 text messages last month that meant nothing? Her mouth opened, then closed. Caught. You've been tracking my messages? I've been paying attention to my wife. Something I should have done months ago, apparently. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of our neighbor's television. Mira clutched her towel tighter and tried a different approach. Silas, I know how this looks, but nothing physical has happened between us. We've just been talking, working through old issues. Every Thursday night for 3 hours? How did you... Badge logs, Mira. You leave work at 5. Your meetings supposedly run until 8. Where exactly are these conversations taking place? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Is this the person who sent me that screenshot? This is Nola Harlow. We need to talk. I showed Mira the message. Her face went even paler. She wants to meet, I said. Should be interesting. Silas, please, don't make this worse than it already is. I'm not making anything worse. I'm just shining light on what was already happening in the dark. Mira's phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed Damon's name. She looked at me, then at the phone, clearly torn between answering and letting it ring. Go ahead, I said. Take it. I'm sure he has a lot to explain. She answered on the 4th ring. Damon, I can't talk right now. Even from across the kitchen, I could hear his voice through the speaker. Loud, angry, demanding to know who had sent the screenshot to his wife. Mira glanced at me nervously. I have to go, she said and ended the call. Trouble in paradise? This isn't a joke, Silas. Nola went into early labor. The stress from finding out about our conversations, she's at the hospital right now. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. That's unfortunate, but not unexpected when someone discovers their spouse is having an emotional affair. It's not an affair. What would you call it? It's complicated. No, Mira. It's simple. You've been lying to me for months. Meeting with your ex-boyfriend, sending him messages about missing what you had together. The only complicated part is figuring out how long this has been going on. She opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to deflate. The fight went out of her posture, and she sank into one of our kitchen chairs, still clutching the towel. It started as just coffee, she said quietly. We ran into each other at that place on 5th Street. It was innocent at first. Just catching up. When? March. 4 months. 4 months of lies and Thursday night deceptions. 4 months of playing the fool while my wife rekindled whatever flame she'd supposedly extinguished years ago. And it progressed from there? We started meeting regularly, talking about old times, about what went wrong between us, about what might have been different, while you were married to me. It wasn't about you, it was about closure. Closure that required 300 text messages last month? She looked surprised that I knew the exact number. You really have been tracking everything. I've been trying to understand why my wife has been lying to me, why she's been meeting secretly with her ex-boyfriend, why she's been coming home from these alleged work meetings smelling like his cologne. That last detail made her flinch. She hadn't realized I'd noticed, but Damon still wore the same expensive fragrance he'd favored when they were dating. I'd smelled it on her clothes, in her hair, lingering in our bedroom after those Thursday nights. Nothing physical has happened, she repeated, but the words sounded hollow now. Define physical. We haven't slept together. That's not what I asked. She was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence I had my answer. Maybe they hadn't crossed the final line, but they'd certainly been walking right up to it. The emotional intimacy, the secret meetings, the text messages, it was all foreplay for something more substantial. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Nola. Damon left the hospital, said he needed to handle something. I'm scared about what he might do. I showed the message to Mira. Your boyfriend seems upset. He's not my boyfriend. What is he then? She struggled for words, and in that struggle, I saw the truth she'd been hiding from herself as much as from me. Whatever label she wanted to put on it, Damon Harlow was more than a friend, more than a casual coffee companion, more than someone she was seeking closure with. He was the man she'd rather be with. The hospital called at 11:47 p.m. Mira had finally gone to bed around 10, retreating to the guest room without discussion. I was still awake, sitting in my home office, researching divorce attorneys and making lists of our shared assets. The phone rang with an unknown number, but I answered anyway. "This is Nola Harlow. I believe you sent me a screenshot earlier today." Her voice was exhausted but steady. In the background, I could hear the subtle beeping of hospital equipment. "I did. How are you feeling?" Like my world just collapsed. "But the baby's healthy, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, born at 9:15 tonight." "Congratulations. I'm sorry the circumstances weren't better." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you deliberately triggered this situation." She had a point. I could have confronted Mira privately, could have demanded answers before involving anyone else. But I'd chosen the nuclear option instead, and now a baby had been born 3 weeks early because of the stress I'd caused. "I thought you deserved to know what your husband was doing." "What exactly do you think he was doing? Because I've been married to Damon for 6 years, and I know when he's actually cheating versus when he's just being an idiot." "The distinction matters?" "It does when you are trying to decide whether to forgive someone or divorce them." I heard movement in the hallway outside my office. Mira, probably listening to my conversation. I kept my voice low, but didn't try to hide what I was saying. "So which is it? Cheating or just being an idiot?" "Both, probably, but not in the way you think." Nola paused, and I heard her take a sip of something. "How long have you known about their meetings?" "I suspected for about a month. Confirmed it tonight when I saw the text exchange." "And you decided to blow up both our marriages instead of talking to your wife first?" "I tried talking. She kept lying." "Did you really try, or did you just wait for her to confess on her own?" The question hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. I hadn't actually confronted Mira about my suspicions. I'd gathered evidence, built a case, and then sprung it on her like a prosecutor presenting to a jury. "What would you have done?" I asked. "Probably the same thing," Nola admitted, "which is why I'm calling you instead of just cursing your name and hanging up." "What do you want from me?" "Information. You said you've been tracking their communications. What exactly did you find?" I opened the folder on my computer where I'd been documenting everything. 300 text messages last month. Weekly meetings at the coffee shop on 5th Street. She leaves work early every Thursday, supposedly for client meetings that don't exist. "What do the messages say?" "Mostly nostalgic. References to shared memories, expressions of regret about how things ended between them. Nothing explicitly romantic, but the subtext is clear." "Send me screenshots of the worst ones." "Why?" "Because I'm sitting in a hospital room with a newborn baby, and my husband is somewhere in the city having what I assume is a breakdown. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I decide how to handle this." I hesitated. Sharing more evidence felt like escalating a situation that had already spiraled beyond what I'd intended. "Please," Nola added, "you started this. Help me finish it." I spent the next 10 minutes forwarding her the most damaging exchanges. Messages where Mira talked about feeling trapped in her current life, where Damon reminisced about their physical relationship, where they discussed meeting at his apartment instead of the coffee shop. His apartment. That detail had been buried in a message from 2 weeks ago. Easy to miss unless you were looking for it. They'd moved their Thursday meetings from public to private. The progression was obvious. "Jesus," Nola said after reviewing everything I'd sent. "They really thought they were being subtle." "Did you confront Damon before he left?" I threw my phone at his head and told him to get out. Not my finest moment, but I was in active labor and had just discovered my husband was having an emotional affair. "What did he say?" "That it wasn't what it looked like, that they were just friends, that he loved me and would never do anything to hurt our family." She laughed bitterly. "All the standard lies cheaters tell when they get caught." "Do you believe him?" "I believe he loves me. I also believe he's been lying to himself about what he was doing with your wife. People are complicated that way." I heard footsteps in the hallway again, closer to my door this time. Mira was definitely listening. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now I figure out whether my marriage is worth saving. What about you?" I looked around my home office, at the wedding photos on the shelf, at the vacation souvenirs we'd collected over the years. 8 years of shared history, reduced to evidence in a case I was building against my own wife. "I honestly don't know." "Well, when you figure it out, let me know. Because whatever we decide to do, we should probably coordinate. No point in working at cross purposes." The call ended, and I sat in the dark for several minutes, thinking about what Nola had said. She was right. I had started this. The question now was how far I was willing to let it go. A soft knock on my office door interrupted my thoughts. Mira's voice came through the wood, tentative and small. "Silas, can we talk?" I opened the door to find her standing in the hallway wearing one of my old college t-shirts. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair messy from tossing and turning. "Nola had her baby," I said. "I know. Damon texted me from the hospital, before everything went wrong. And after. He called around midnight. He's staying at his brother's place tonight. Nola won't let him come home." "Can you blame her?" Mira shook her head. "No, I can't blame her for anything. This is our fault." "Our fault. At least she was taking some responsibility." "Come in," I said, stepping aside to let her into the office. She sat in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where she used to sit when we were dating, and she'd keep me company while I worked late, back when we told each other everything, when secrets weren't part of our vocabulary. "I need to explain something," she said, "about why this started, about what it meant to me. I'm listening. Do you remember when we first started dating? How I told you that Damon and I had this intense, passionate relationship that burned out because we were too young to handle it?" I nodded. It had been part of her romantic history, filed away with all the other details I'd learned about her past. "What I didn't tell you was that I spent years wondering if I'd made a mistake, if I'd given up on something real because I was scared of how intense it was." "And you've been wondering about that throughout our entire marriage?" "Not throughout, but sometimes, especially when things got routine between us, when we fell into patterns and stopped really seeing each other." The words stung because they contained enough truth to hurt. We had fallen into patterns. We did take each other for granted sometimes. But that was normal for long-term relationships, wasn't it? "So you decided to explore those feelings with him." "I decided to get closure, to prove to myself that what we had was just nostalgia, not something real." "And what did you prove?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands folded in her lap. "That some feelings don't go away just because you want them to." There it was, the truth I'd been dreading but expecting. She was still in love with Damon Harlow. Maybe she'd never stopped being in love with him. "So where does that leave us?" "I don't know. I love you too, Silas, but it's different. Quieter, more comfortable." "Comfortable," I repeated. "That's what 8 years of marriage gets me. Comfortable." "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant. I'm the safe choice. The responsible husband who pays the bills and loads the dishwasher and doesn't make your heart race the way he does." She didn't deny it, which was denial enough. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "When we started meeting for coffee, I really did think it was just about closure. But it became about more. It became about remembering who I used to be, before mortgages and career pressures and all the things that make life smaller. Before me, you mean? Before us. Before the version of myself that I became in this relationship." I understood what she was saying, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. She felt constrained by our marriage, diminished by the life we'd built together, and Damon represented freedom from all of that. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I want to turn back time and handle this differently. I want to have been honest with you from the beginning about what I was feeling." "That's not an option. What do you want to do now?" "I want to try to fix this, to figure out if we can rebuild what we had." "What we had wasn't enough for you. Why would rebuilding it be different?" "Because now I know what I almost lost. Now I understand the consequences of taking you for granted." It was the right thing to say, but it felt hollow. She understood the consequences because I'd forced her to face them, not because she'd come to the realization on her own. "I need time to think," I said. "How much time?" "I don't know. More than one conversation in the middle of the night." She nodded and stood to leave. At the doorway, she turned back. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just about getting caught, but about letting it get this far. About lying to you, about all of it. I know you are?" After she left, I sat in my office until dawn, thinking about comfortable love versus passionate love, about the difference between being chosen and being settled for. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to try to rebuild our marriage. I was going to end it. But first, I was going to make sure Damon Harlow understood exactly what he'd cost me. The law office of Angela Lynn occupied the 3rd floor of a glass building downtown, all clean lines and expensive furniture designed to project competence and success. I'd chosen her based on online reviews and the fact that she specialized in what her website diplomatically called high-conflict divorces. "So you want to divorce your wife because she was having an emotional affair with her ex-boyfriend," Angela said, reviewing the notes she'd taken during our consultation. "And you have documentation of their communications. 300 text messages, badge logs showing she was lying about working late, and photographic evidence of their meetings. Any indication that the relationship became physical?" "Not definitively, but they progressed from meeting in public to meeting at his apartment? Angela nodded, making additional notes. In this state, adultery can be grounds for divorce, but emotional affairs are harder to prove legally than physical ones. However, the deception and violation of trust are still relevant for asset division and spousal support considerations. What kind of timeline are we looking at? If it's uncontested, we could have preliminary paperwork filed within a week. If she fights it, or if there are significant assets to divide, it could take months. She'll fight it. She thinks we can work things out. Can you? No? Angela studied me for a moment. You seem very certain about that. She told me she's still in love with him, that what we have is comfortable but not passionate. I'm not interested in being someone's safe backup plan. That's understandable, but I have to ask, is this decision being made from a place of hurt and anger, or have you really thought through the implications? Both, probably, but the anger is just clarifying what I should have seen months ago. We want different things. She wants excitement and intensity. I want honesty and commitment. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. They are with her. Angela spent the next hour walking me through the divorce process, explaining how assets would be divided, what I could expect in terms of spousal support, and how to protect myself financially during the proceedings. By the time I left her office, I had a clear roadmap for dismantling my marriage, but I also had another plan forming, one that had nothing to do with legal proceedings. Damon Harlow owned a gym called Powerhouse Fitness on the south side of town. According to his social media profiles, which I'd spent considerable time studying, he was there most mornings by 6 a.m. to open up for the early crowd. His routine was predictable. Unlock the doors, turn on the lights and music, start the coffee machine, and spend 20 minutes doing his own workout before the members arrived. I showed up at 5:45 a.m. on Friday morning. The parking lot was empty except for his black pickup truck parked in the spot marked Owner near the front entrance. I pulled into a space with a clear view of the building and waited. He emerged from the gym at exactly 6:20, just as the first members were arriving. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of effortless athleticism that had probably made him popular in high school and college, the kind of man who'd never had to work hard for attention from women. I watched him greet the early morning regulars with easy familiarity, the kind of charismatic confidence that drew people to him. I could see why Mira was attracted to him, why she found our quiet marriage lacking in comparison, but I could also see something else in his demeanor, a tension in his shoulders, a forced quality to his smile. The events of the past 2 days had affected him too. I waited until the morning rush died down around 9 a.m., then walked into the gym. "Can I help you?" asked the young woman at the front desk. Her name tag read Jessica. "I'd like to speak with Damon Harlow. Is he available?" "He's in his office. Can I tell him what this is about?" "Tell him Silas Corvin is here to discuss his wife." Jessica looked confused, but picked up the phone. A few moments later, Damon appeared from a door marked Private, his expression wary. "You must be Mira's husband," he said. "I am. We need to talk." He glanced around the gym, noting the handful of members scattered across the equipment. "My office." The office was small and cluttered, dominated by a desk covered in paperwork and a wall of framed photos showing Damon with various local celebrities and athletes. No pictures of Nola, I noticed, no pictures of his newborn daughter. "Before you say anything," Damon began, "I want you to know that nothing physical happened between Mira and me." "I don't care what happened between you and Mira." That seemed to surprise him. "Then why are you here?" "I'm here because your wife called me last night from the hospital. Because your newborn daughter is 3 weeks premature thanks to the stress you caused. Because you destroyed 2 marriages for the sake of reliving your college glory days." "Look, I know how this must seem. It seems like you're a selfish man who pursued a married woman without considering the consequences for anyone else involved." Damon's jaw tightened. "Mira came to me. She was the one who wanted to reconnect. And you could have said no. You could have told her you were married, that she was married, that nothing good could come from secret meetings and nostalgic text messages. It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" "It was—" He struggled for words. "It was unfinished business. We never got proper closure when we broke up. There were things that needed to be said. Things that took 4 months to say. It's complicated. No, it's simple. You wanted to have an affair without calling it an affair. You wanted the excitement of forbidden romance without the responsibility of admitting what you were doing. I love my wife. You have a funny way of showing it." Damon stood up from behind his desk, his hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. But then he seemed to remember where we were, that his gym members could see through the glass door of his office. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want you to understand what you've cost me. 8 years of marriage, the woman I thought I was going to spend my life with, my trust in people, my faith in relationships. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now we all have to live with the consequences." I stood to leave, then turned back. "By the way, congratulations on becoming a father. I hope your daughter grows up to have better judgment about men than her father has shown about women." I left him standing in his office, staring after me with a mixture of anger and shame on his face. It wasn't much of a victory, but it was a start. The real reckoning would come later. The divorce papers were served to Mira at her real estate office on Monday morning. I wasn't there to see her reaction, but her sister called me 20 minutes later, screaming into the phone about how I was destroying the family and ruining everyone's lives. "She made one mistake," Rachel said. "One stupid mistake, and you're throwing away 8 years of marriage." She made hundreds of mistakes, 300 text messages worth of mistakes. She never slept with him. That you know of. She told me nothing physical happened. She told me a lot of things that turned out to be lies. Rachel hung up on me, but not before calling me several names that would have made our mother wash her mouth out with soap. I expected the hostility from Mira's family. What I didn't expect was the call from my own sister 2 hours later. "Are you sure about this?" Vera asked. "Because divorce is permanent, and hurt feelings aren't." "This isn't about hurt feelings. This is about fundamental incompatibility." "Since when? You two seemed happy enough at Christmas." "We seemed comfortable. Apparently that's not the same thing as happy." Vera was quiet for a moment. "I'm the one who told you about seeing them together. I feel responsible for this whole mess." "You didn't create the mess. You just helped me see it clearly. Maybe I should have minded my own business. Maybe Mira should have minded hers." But even as I said it, I wondered if Vera was right. Would I have been happier living in ignorance? Was the comfortable marriage I'd thought we had better than the divorce I was now pursuing? The answer came that evening when Mira showed up at the house, still wearing her work clothes, her eyes red from crying. "We need to talk," she said. "We talked Friday night. I thought I made my position clear. Your position was that you needed time to think, not that you were filing for divorce." "I did think. This is what I decided." She followed me into the living room, where I was packing books into boxes. The sight of our shared belongings being divided and sorted seemed to hit her like a physical blow. "You can't just throw away everything we built together." "I'm not throwing it away. I'm acknowledging that it wasn't what I thought it was." "Because of a few text messages?" "Because of what those messages revealed about how you really feel. About me, about our marriage, about what you want from life." She sat down heavily on the couch, watching me wrap our wedding photo in newspaper before placing it in a box marked Mira. "I told you I wanted to work on things. You told me you love me, but that it's comfortable love, quiet love, not the passionate, intense love you feel for him." I was being honest about my feelings. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "I wanted honesty, yes, but I also wanted to be with someone who chose me because they couldn't imagine being with anyone else, not because I was the safe option after the exciting choice didn't work out." "That's not fair." "Fair would have been you figuring this out before you married me. Fair would have been you being honest about your feelings for Damon before you started meeting with him secretly." Mira wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I made mistakes. I know that. But people make mistakes in marriages. That's why you work through them. Some mistakes, yes, but not this kind. Not the kind where you realize your spouse is in love with someone else." "I'm not in love with him." "You said some feelings don't go away just because you want them to. That doesn't mean I want to be with him instead of you. Doesn't it?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I continued packing while she sat on the couch, occasionally offering to help or asking if I was sure about keeping certain items. The domestic normalcy of it felt surreal, dividing up 8 years of shared possessions while discussing the end of our marriage. "What about the house?" she asked. "You can keep it if you want. I'll sign over my half of the equity as part of the settlement." "I can't afford the mortgage payments on my own." "Then sell it, or get a roommate, or ask Damon to move in once his divorce is finalized." "His divorce?" "You didn't know. Nola filed papers this morning. Apparently she decided their marriage wasn't worth saving either." Mira looked genuinely shocked. "She's divorcing him?" Turns out new mothers don't appreciate their husbands having emotional affairs. Who could have predicted that? "This is all spiraling out of control." "No, this is all the natural consequence of the choices you and Damon made. Actions have results, lies have consequences." My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number again, but I recognized it as Nola's. "Can we meet? I have something to show you." I showed the message to Mira. Looks like I'm not the only one who wants answers. What could she possibly want to show you? I guess I'll find out. I agreed to meet Nola at a coffee shop downtown, ironically the same chain where Mira and Damon had been conducting their secret meetings, though at a different location. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a laptop open in front of her. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down across from her. "How are you feeling? How's the baby?" "We're both fine, physically. Emotionally is a different story." She turned the laptop screen toward me. "I want to show you something I found on Damon's computer." The screen displayed a folder titled Mira, containing dozens of photos. Some were clearly old, from when they dated years ago, but others were recent, candid shots taken during their coffee meetings, pictures of her leaving the real estate office, even a few that appeared to have been taken from outside our house. "He's been stalking her," I said. "Not stalking exactly, but documenting, obsessing." Nola clicked through more files. "Look at this." The next folder contained what appeared to be a timeline of Mira's daily routine, her work schedule, her favorite restaurants, the gym she attended, even notes about my travel schedule for work. "How long has he been doing this?" "Based on the file dates, since about 6 months after we got married, long before they started meeting for coffee." I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just an affair or even an emotional reconnection. This was obsession. "There's more," Nola said, opening another file. "Letters he wrote but never sent. Hundreds of them, going back years." The letters were disturbing in their intensity. Declarations of love, fantasies about their future together, detailed plans for how they could leave their respective spouses and start over. Some were romantic, others were angry, a few were borderline threatening. "Mira doesn't know about any of this, does she?" Nola asked. "I don't think so. If she did, she would have mentioned it when we talked." "So she thinks they were just reconnecting as friends, working through old feelings. She has no idea that he's been obsessing over her for years." "What do you want me to do with this information?" "I want you to help me stop him." "Stop him from what?" "From whatever he's planning next. Because looking at all this, I don't think he's going to just accept that both our marriages are over and move on. I think he's going to see it as an opportunity to finally get what he's always wanted." I looked at the screen again, at the photos and letters and obsessive documentation of my wife's life. Nola was right. This wasn't over. If anything, it was just beginning. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. The plan Nola and I developed was simple in concept, but complex in execution. We would confront Damon together, present him with the evidence of his obsessive behavior, and demand that he leave both Mira and our families alone. If he refused, we would take the documentation to the police and pursue stalking charges. But first, I had to show Mira what we'd discovered. She came over Thursday evening to collect more of her belongings. I'd been living in the house alone for a week, and the emptiness had begun to feel normal. Seeing her there, moving through rooms that had once been ours, felt like watching a ghost revisit a former life. "I have something to show you," I said, opening my laptop on the kitchen table. "If it's more evidence of my text messages with Damon, I don't need to see it again." "It's not your messages, it's his files." I walked her through everything Nola had found, the photos, the timeline, the obsessive documentation, the unsent letters. I watched her face change as she processed what she was seeing, confusion giving way to recognition, recognition giving way to fear. "He's been watching me for years," she said quietly, "since shortly after he got married." "But why didn't he ever approach me? Why wait until this year to start meeting for coffee?" "I think because you were safely married and unavailable. The fantasy was enough as long as it stayed a fantasy. And when I ran into him at the coffee shop, he saw an opportunity to turn fantasy into reality." Mira scrolled through more of the files, her hands shaking slightly. "Some of these photos, I remember these days. I remember feeling like someone was watching me, but I thought I was being paranoid." "You weren't paranoid. You were being stalked." And I walked right into it. I thought I was in control of the situation, that I was just exploring old feelings, but he was manipulating me from the beginning. "It looks that way." She closed the laptop and sat back in her chair. "I feel like such an idiot. You couldn't have known." "Couldn't I?" Looking back, there were signs. The way he always knew exactly where to find me, how he seemed to know things about my schedule that I hadn't told him, the intensity of his interest in reconnecting. "What do you want to do about it?" "What can we do? File a restraining order?" "Nola and I are planning to confront him first. Give him a chance to back off voluntarily before we involve the legal system." "That sounds dangerous." "More dangerous than letting him continue to obsess over you?" Mira considered this. "I want to be there when you confront him." I don't think that's a good idea. It's my life he's been documenting, my privacy he's been violating. I have a right to face him. She was right, but I worried about how Damon might react to seeing her. If he was as obsessed as the evidence suggested, her presence might escalate the situation rather than resolve it. Let me talk to Nola first. See what she thinks. Nola was less than enthusiastic about including Mira in our confrontation. He's been fantasizing about her for years, she said when I called her that evening. Having her there might make him think this is all some elaborate setup to get them together. But she has a right to face her stalker. She has a right to be safe, which means staying as far away from my soon-to-be ex-husband as possible. What if we compromise? What if she's there but stays in the background? Let him know she's seen the evidence and wants him to stop? I don't like it, but I understand why she wants to be involved. We arranged to meet at Damon's gym the following evening, after closing time. Nola had kept a key from when she used to help with the business, and she knew Damon's routine well enough to predict when he'd be there alone, doing paperwork and cleaning equipment. The three of us arrived separately and met in the parking lot at 8 p.m. The gym was dark, except for the office light in the back. He's definitely here, Nola said, pointing to his truck. Probably doing the books. He always stays late on Fridays. We entered through the front door, Nola disabling the alarm with practiced efficiency. The gym felt different in the darkness, all shadows and bulk equipment looming like sleeping monsters. Light spilled from the office doorway, and we could hear music playing softly, something classical, which surprised me. I'd expected heavy metal or rock, something more in keeping with his athletic image. Damon, Nola called as we approached the office. We need to talk. The music stopped abruptly, followed by the sound of a chair scraping against the floor. Damon appeared in the doorway, his expression shifting from confusion to anger as he saw the three of us standing together. What is this? He asked. This is an intervention, Nola said. We know about the files, Damon. The photos, the letters, all of it. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. The folder on your computer labeled Mira, the timeline of her daily routine, the pictures you took without her permission. Damon's eyes darted between us, and I could see him calculating whether to deny everything or try to explain it away. It's not what you think, he said finally. What is it then? Mira asked, speaking for the first time. He focused on her with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. It's love. Real love, not the comfortable arrangement you have with him. It's stalking, I said. It's obsession. You don't understand what we had together, Damon continued, still looking at Mira. What we could have again, if you just give us a chance. There is no us, Mira said firmly. There never was going to be an us. I was confused and nostalgic, but I was never going to leave my husband for you. You said you missed what we had. I missed being young and stupid. I missed the simplicity of college relationships, but I never missed you specifically. The words hit him like physical blows. His expression shifted from desperate hope to crushing disappointment to rising anger. You're lying. I know how you felt when we were together. I know what you wanted. What I wanted was closure. What you gave me was manipulation and obsession. I gave you honesty. I told you how I really felt. You told me what you thought I wanted to hear, just like you've been telling yourself lies for years about what our relationship meant. Damon turned to me, his face flushed with anger. This is your doing. You poisoned her against me. I didn't have to poison her against you. Your own actions did that. She was happy with me. We were going to figure out a way to be together. No, Mira said. We weren't. I was never going to leave Silas for you, even before I knew about your stalking. Even when I thought our meetings were innocent, I knew I wasn't going to destroy my marriage for a fantasy. Then why did you keep meeting with me? Why did you text me back? Because I was flattered. Because I was going through a rough patch in my marriage and you made me feel desired. Because I was selfish and stupid and didn't think about the consequences. You felt more than that. I know you did. I felt nostalgia. I felt curiosity. But I never felt love, not the way you wanted me to. The silence that followed was heavy with years of delusion crashing into reality. Damon stood in his office doorway, surrounded by the evidence of his obsession, finally hearing the truth he'd been avoiding. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now you delete all the files, Nola said. You stop contacting Mira. You stop following her, photographing her, documenting her life. You leave her completely alone. And if I don't? Then we go to the police with everything we found. Stalking charges, harassment, violation of privacy. Your gym, your reputation, your freedom, all of it goes away. Damon looked at each of us in turn, his expression cycling through anger, desperation, and finally resignation. Fine, he said. I'll delete the files. All of them, I said. And any backups. All of them. And you'll stay away from Mira. I'll stay away from all of you. He turned back into his office, and we heard the sound of typing, file folders being opened and closed, the electronic chiming of deletion confirmations. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his face was hollow. It's done, he said. Show us, Nola demanded. We crowded into the office while Damon demonstrated that the folders were gone, that his browser history had been cleared, that his phone contained no photos or contact information for Mira. Satisfied? He asked. For now, Nola said. But if we find out you've contacted her, or if she sees you anywhere near her home or office, we're calling the police immediately. I understand. We left him standing in his empty gym, surrounded by the ruins of his obsession. In the parking lot, Mira was quiet until we reached our cars. Thank you, she said to both of us, for protecting me from something I didn't even know I needed protection from. What will you do now? Nola asked. I don't know. Try to figure out how to rebuild my life, I guess. She looked at me. What about us? Is there any chance we could try again, knowing what we know now? I considered the question seriously. The revelation about Damon's obsession had changed the context of everything. Mira had been manipulated rather than simply unfaithful, but it didn't change the fundamental issues between us. I don't think so, I said finally. Not because of what happened with Damon, but because of what you said about comfortable love versus passionate love. You deserve to find someone who makes your heart race, and I deserve to be with someone who doesn't need that kind of intensity to be happy. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know you are, and I'm sorry too. For the way I handled things. For not talking to you before I sent that screenshot to Nola. You probably saved my life. If Damon's obsession had continued to escalate... She didn't finish the sentence, but we all understood the implication. 3 months later, our divorce was finalized. Mira moved to another city, taking a job with a real estate firm that specialized in commercial properties. Nola and Damon's divorce was messier. He fought the custody arrangements and tried to claim she'd alienated him from their daughter. But the evidence of his stalking behavior made his case impossible to defend. I kept the house and started dating again, slowly and carefully. The experience with Mira had taught me the importance of really knowing someone before committing to a future with them. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never seen that text message, if I'd remained oblivious to Mira's meetings with Damon. Would we have stayed married? Would his obsession have eventually escalated into something dangerous? Would she have eventually left me anyway? But mostly, I don't think about it. The past is past, and the future is full of possibilities I never could have imagined when I was living in comfortable love with someone who dreamed of passion with someone else. The truth, as painful as it was to discover, had set us all free.